Weirdos, weirdos, boys and ghouls, how are we all doing? Now, I've had some feedback from some recent videos that I've been doing. That Bagin's Demon House. Yes, I said Bagins instead of Baggins. I'm sorry I got his name wrong, you know. What does it matter? The guy's a fraud. The Haunting in Connecticut story, or the Snedeker family haunting, and the Warrens, and also Ghost Watch. Basically, these things that are seen as real and then get debunked, kind of my thoughts on that. But this one is a little bit more out there, because this one involves fairies. Yep, that's right. Now, recently, the Paranormal Monkey podcast did a podcast interview live with a woman who believed in fairies and gnomes and quite the bizarre sort of thing. But it's not the first time that this has reared its head in the paranormal world. So let me take you back to 1917. Yep, we're going way, way back to a place called Cottingley, and what I'm going to call the Cottingley Fairies saga. You see, it's one of the most fascinating episodes in the history of hoaxes because it blended elements of childlike wonder, spiritualism, and human beliefs. And the whole thing centers around 5 photographs taken by 2 young cousins, Elsie Wright and Francis Griffiths, in the village of Cottingley, near Bradford in West Yorkshire, England. And these images were reported to have shown real-life fairies interacting with the kids. And back then, it captivated the public imagination. And my grandfather told me this story, but he left out the bit about it being debunked. But yeah, it captivated the public's imagination, and it garnered support from some really, really notable figures, including Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Yep, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Sherlock Holmes fame. But ultimately, this was all exposed as constructed fraud. So I'm going to delve into why people believed in the Cottingley Fairies, how the photographs were eventually proven to be fake, and the eventual admission of guilt from the creators. In 1917, 16-year-old Elsie Wright and her 9-year-old cousin Francis Griffiths claimed to have encountered fairies while playing in a local stream near their home. It would have been called a bet as a local term back then. And using Elsie's father's camera, they took photographs that appeared to depict ethereal beings. The first photograph showed Francis playing with several small winged figures, and the second photograph showed Elsie with a gnome-like creature. And they presented these photographs to their families, and initially it was met with skepticism, as you could imagine. The photographs are soon taken more seriously by Elsie's mother, Polly, and she was involved in the Theosophical movement, which had a keen interest in the paranormal and the mystical. And so the photographs came to much, much wider attention when Polly Wright, the mother, took them to a meeting of the Theosophical Society in Bradford. They eventually caught the eye of Edward Gardner, a leader in the Theosophical Society, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who, as I previously mentioned, created Sherlock Holmes. And he was a strong believer in spiritualism, mostly because he was so eager to find evidence that would support his belief in life after death and other supernatural phenomena. And he saw these photographs as proof of the existence of otherworldly beings, and he used them to illustrate an article on fairies for the Strand magazine in 1920. Arthur Conan Doyle's endorsement was significant because of his fame and his reputation as a rational thinker, despite his beliefs in the paranormal. And his support lent the photographs an aura of credibility, and that encouraged many to think that these photographs were genuine. Additionally, I suppose we could take into account the timing of these photographs, because this was shortly after the devastation of World War I, and maybe that played a crucial role in the reception. You know, the public at the time grappling with an immense loss and fear and probably searching for hope. Maybe because of that, they were more inclined to embrace the magical unseen world. Despite the widespread belief in the authenticity of these photographs, the Cottingley Fairies were, in reality, simple fabrications. Elsie Wright, who was quite the artist at her age, had drawn and cut out illustrations of fairies from a popular children's book being titled Princess Mary's Gift Book. And the cutouts were propped up by hat pins, and they were positioned in natural settings to create the illusion of interacting with the girls. And the success of these images, they must have relied heavily on the innocence and the apparent sincerity of the young photographer and artist. And of course, that brought in skepticism and in turn, investigations. And from the beginning, there were skeptics who doubted the veracity of the photographs. Some photographic experts noting that the fairies appeared to be a little bit too flat and that the light and the shadows were inconsistent with the surrounding environment. However, because of the believers like Conan Doyle, combined with prevailing cultural context, it overshadowed the concerns of fakery. And then in the 1970s, interest in the Cottingley Fairies was revived, but this prompting a renewed scrutiny. James Randi, most of us in the debunking community have heard of him, prominent magician and a debunker of paranormal claims. He and other skeptics highlighted the technical flaws in the photographs, and additionally they pointed out the similarities between the fairies in the photographs and the illustrations in the books, which in turn led to admissions of guilt. And this is where the definitive debunking of the Cottingley Fairies come into play in 1983, when Elsie Wright and Frances Griffith were elderly women. They finally admitted the truth in an interview with Unexplained magazine. Elsie confessing that the fairies were paper cutouts, copied from a book, while Frances maintained that she had genuinely seen fairies and that the fifth photograph was absolutely real. And this partial confession reflected a blend in lingering belief and reluctance to fully let go of the fantasy that these two girls had created. So the Cottingley Fairies hoax is a compelling case in human beliefs, the desire to wonder, and the power of photographic evidence, and this relays into the real world now with video evidence that is so easily manipulated. And we're on the cusp of AI editing taking over, and the debunker's job is going to get so much more difficult. The combination of the cultural context, the influential endorsements by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and the inherent appeal of a magical narrative led many to accept that these photographs were real. And the eventual exposure of the hoax serves as a reminder to the importance of skepticism and of critical thinking, especially in the face of extraordinary claims. And the saga of the Cottingley Fairies continues to be a poignant example how even the most seemingly innocent of deceptions can captivate and in turn deceive. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. If you're outside of the UK, have you ever heard of this case of these fairies? Because when I grew up, my grandfather told me this story, and he didn't let on for a long time that it had been debunked. And I heard various other people telling, the kids' stories about how fairies were real and they were photographed, and but the debunk never got as much widestream attention as the initial photographs did. But it's fascinating, and it does kind of link in with the paranormal and in with debunking. So whilst people are saying, look, we're enjoying these little dives you're doing into other things that have been debunked by other people many years ago, I just found that maybe this is something that could interest you, especially if you're not from the UK and have never heard of it. Hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's not ghosts, and I know it's not haunted houses or debunking, but still, it falls within the realms of beyond the normal, aka the paranormal. Much love to you all. Beardo out.